Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, well, aging. On today's podcast, my guest is Dr. Coyte Cooper, best-selling author, transformational coach and speaker, father, and former university professor. Dr. Cooper is the host of the Earn the Right to Live Your Dream podcast. It is Dr. Cooper's philosophy to add crazy value to people's lives each day. Join us as we discuss goals, gratitude, and aging well. Coyte, if you could share with us a little bit of your background and what laid the groundwork for who you are and what you do today.
Yeah, I tell people from an early age, I didn't know this at the time, but I've always had a passion for teaching. Like even when I was in high school, my senior project, I did a camp where I was working with kids, and through the sport of wrestling, I advanced. I went to college and had a chance to wrestle there, and loved wrestling. And then I got my degree in education, so I always thought I was going to be a teacher. And but then when I got done with my undergrad, I wanted to continue my schooling. And so I transitioned into being a professor, and I'm speeding this up quite a bit. But the one thing in the middle of that, it was just this desire to teach and impact people. And so while I've done different things, I thought I was going to be a high school teacher, didn't do that, went on to become a professor, really enjoyed that, had a transition out. Where now I coach people and work with people. There was just always a love for teaching. And I always wanted to be able to step into people's lives and help really transform them. And so now a lot of what I do is that with mindset, with habits, just helping people get their minds in the right place. Because to me, that's one of the most important things you can do to really drive everything that's going on. And so I think I was fortunate, though, as I look in hindsight, to have parents that really poured into me. I had some really, one really influential coach in my life in high school that just literally changed the way I thought, changed the way that I operated, helped me believe in myself more. And I think when you're fortunate to have people like that, it really impacts you. And so for me, I think through all of it, I think there was this drive to teach. I think I bounced around until I really fully figured that out. But I think that's the trend through kind of all my whole life and my whole career.
And I think that's part of it. Talk about bouncing around. I mean, I could tell the whole similar story. I mean, not certainly near the same as yours, but I always say to people who ask that question, what could you, if you could change one thing in your life, what would you change? And I'd say absolutely nothing, because everything brought me to where I am today and where I'm supposed to be tomorrow.
For sure.
And had you not had some of the circumstances that you had, if you had gotten tenure at UNC, we would have lost all of the information that you've been able to share and are going to hopefully share with us today.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of purpose in some of the setbacks that we see in life. And I know you believe that and you teach that, and probably learned a little bit of that from you.
Yeah.
Now you've written 3 books, Make Your Mark, Impressions, and most recently, Flip the Script.
Yes.
Can you give us a brief book jacket description of each of these and what inspired you to write those?
Yeah, I mean, the first one I wrote was when I was at UNC. It was Impressions. And I tell people, I think back, and I didn't know it at the time, but when I go back to my house in Anacortes, where my parents and I grew up, I look in there and I see these books from Dr. Stephen Covey and Wayne Dyer. And it's kind of funny because it's like, man, I was reading those things when I was in high school. And I just think when I read those things, I thought, this is really cool. I would like to write a book someday. And so when I came to UNC, I was doing a lot of work with coaches and just how to help them kind of represent themselves, carry themselves, build their brand, and just help programs out. And what I started to realize is just how important it was at the center of that to have leaders that really carried themselves well. And I came upon this idea of personal branding, this idea that the way you carry yourself matters. And the initial starting point of that is, man, if you really can carry yourself the right way, it can help you open up opportunities. But it was deeper than that. I believe that you could carry yourself in a way that would really make a difference in people's lives. And you could make literal you can make lasting impressions on people by the way you carry yourself. So impressions was like my first go at it. And it was really cool, just to see how people took that. And I still have really good friends now who read that book and they claim it like really changed their lives. And I look back and I'm like, gosh, it seems so basic, but like it was so cool the way it changed people. Make Your Mark was the second one, and with Make Your Mark, I kind of dug in a little bit more on just habits that you can implement to go out and just really make a difference in people's lives, and not only that, just carry yourself the right way. So it was almost this extension where I dove more into the first of the morning growth routine, and certain things that you can do to maximize not only your happiness but make an impact through your how you're carrying yourself. The most recent one was called Flip the Script, and this was really the one when I lost my job at the University of North Carolina. I got denied tenure. It was a tricky spot for me. It was this spot where it was definitely adversity for me, and I really had to dig kind of inward to figure out like how do I take and turn this into something better. And it was weird because I was writing this book as I was going through it, and I would literally get to the point where I couldn't write any more chapters because I hadn't figured out how to deal what was in front of me. And when you have self-doubt, when you have these frustrations, I really wanted to dig in and figure out how do you go from a spot, this challenging situation, how do you flip the script and turn it into something really awesome? And so Flip the Script was just the common barriers that not only I face, but a lot of people face, and just how you can take and do something productive with it. And I think in all of them, what I've always wanted is to help people live better. Now, I think my ego's shrunk with every book, and I think it continues to shrink. So I think the more that happens, the better I can write books that serve people. But again, that same theme, just hoping to be able to impact some people's lives. And when you write a book, it is really neat. You'll get people that will write you and tell you they stink too. So it's not it's not all
Yeah.
good. But you have those people who write and say, "Man, it just I was really in a hard spot." And it helped me. And it really means a lot when you hear that, where people read Flip the Script who have gone through adversity and they realize, like, I don't have to stay here. I can do something with this. I can train my mind to look for good here and find it. And I can move forward and I can have it turn into something really beautiful. And I've seen that happen. And that's a pretty rewarding thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I say, I mean, I've profited from the books as well, and love your writing. And who cares about the
Thank you.
critics, right? And when you talk about
They're always
ego,
there.
yeah, they're always going to be there. It's
Yeah,
haters will hate, they say, right? If you want to talk
sure.
like the
Sure.
teenagers.
Yeah.
But with the ego piece, shrinking the ego,
Hmm.
uh, I think it's less that it shrinks. I think we shed it, and in the process of
Yeah.
shedding a lot of that ego is where, if we're using our ego properly, it's
Hmm.
being passed on to other people. It's just kind of sharing that piece of the universe that you've been given
Yeah.
and helping that to grow others and passing it on. So, there are some people I think that their egos definitely need to shrink,
Hmm.
but there are other
Yeah.
people I think that are given an ego for a purpose of really helping other people. And I would say
Sure.
that's definitely what you've done with any ego that you might have had.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you didn't hit the level of wrestling that you hit without having some ego. You needed that in order to accomplish what you've accomplished in the past. Now you're
Sure.
just passing it forward.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. No,
that's
and it
cool.
it is interesting though, like when you think about a sport like wrestling, very individual, and so you have to learn this high level of confidence and focus and sometimes selfishness. And that's something when you want to be a great husband and a father, you need to shed, I'm going to use your word, you need to shed some of that. And so I've needed to shed some of that. And even as a coach, I'm best as a coach when it's not about me. I'm best as a coach. And I learned that from the greatest coach I ever had, a guy named Ron, who recently passed. Like, he was so selfless. Like, he just loved on you and he just wanted the best for you. And so I just challenge myself every day, shed the ego, show up at the table, serve these people. And then I think business wise, it'll take care of itself. If you serve enough people, it'll take care of itself. So it's that battle. It's a nice thing though when you shred, shake, shrink, whatever you want to use. When you start to do that, it's just life is a lot better when you're not guarding and protecting things.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a recent podcast, the idea of smart goal setting came up,
Hmm.
and I mentioned your unique twist on these because I remember it from Make Your Mark, where particularly the addition of the I Smart, the
Hmm.
I in I Smart, um, Can you elaborate on these for you, kind of your perspective of the iSmart goal
Yeah, I think one of the
approach?
yeah, no, I think one of the things that's really important when it comes to goals is making them more personal. And so we have this incredible part of our brain called the reticular activation system. And it's this system that when you train your mind that something's important and something's a priority, your brain will pay attention to that. And so it's really important that you sit down and you think of these goals that you're really passionate about. And I think in life, if you don't have certain things that you want to push for, life can get boring. It can get more mundane. And so there's this balance where you want to make sure you have goals and you relax, but really sitting down and identifying things that you're passionate about pursuing. And when I wrote that book, one of the things that I emphasize is the I in front of the I smart. There's a lot of people who've read kind of the different versions of the SMART system of goals, making sure you're specific, making sure they're measurable, like these different elements to it that are really important. And there's time bound. But one of the things that I believe is that you want to be able to own these things. And so when it comes to owning a goal, if you say, man, I want to get in the best shape of my life and I want to be able to run a half marathon. You don't write to get in the best shape of my life and run a marathon. You have to own that. This is not Shakespeare. I tell people these are your goals. And so, you got to write that down. And I believe in this model enough. I have behind me a journal where I've written down my goals for thousands of days. And every single day I show up and people say, well, why do you do that? Because our world is so cluttered with stuff now. And a lot of it is not great. I mean, a lot of it is this fear based information that's fed to us every single day. And I tell people if you want to have a shot to be able to live a life that you're really passionate about, you've got to wake up and you got to put first things first. And so I don't just do goals. I do values. I meditate. There's these things that I do to keep my mind in a really great spot. But I wake up every day and I remind myself my number one thing is family. And what's my goal? Like right now, my main goal is I want to serve my family the absolute best I can so they can live their best lives. And I write that down and I try to feel that and I try to be passionate about that because I want my brain to know this is a priority. With everything going on, this is a priority. I go through my second thing and I think, man, like to be a coach is this just incredible blessing. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'll write down, like, I want to create this dynamic, just world class coaching experience that frees people up. And so what I want to do every day is remind myself, this is what we're pursuing. This is what's important. Because if I don't, my goodness, when you get out there with social media and everything, the news and everything that people are trying to grab your attention, you're going to get pulled off track. And I work with a lot of high level people, and this is something that's really important. If you want to be happy and you want to have a life that you really want to be living and it's more freeing, you got to point your brain to what's most important. So that's really what that was all about. That was my initial kind of early starting on that process.
I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging. One thing I really liked about your approach with that was what you did with the R. Can you explain a little bit about how you approach the R in SMART?
Yeah, and well, the R, reasonable, is that what you're talking about? Just the
Yep.
yeah, no, that was different. I work with so many people and they'll talk about like, but Coyte, I want to be reasonable. Like I want to be reasonable. And a lot of times what reasonable means is like, what does society think is okay? Like what does society think is normal? And what I try to tell people is blow that out of the water. Stop worrying about what's reasonable. Instead, think of something that is really, really cool that you would love to achieve. And it probably is going to be unreasonable. If it's really, really something that you're passionate about, it's probably not something that's going to fit within a nice tight box. And so if you can get outside that and choose something that's not reasonable, that you're passionate about, that's to me the spot where you want to be. And what I tell people though is you want to be aware that when you do that, to make sure that you're going at your goals with a growth mindset, that you look at it and and you see it as this amazing opportunity to grow. Like if I have this goal where I say, man, I want to create this world-class coaching experience that just impacts 10,000 people. At first your brain's like, wait, like how am I going to make that happen? And it seems like unreasonable, but if you'll just stay excited about it and say, you know what, regardless, if I just get out and I pursue it, um, man, I'm going to grow. I'm going to become more bold. I'm going to become more impactful. Say I get to 9,500 people and people say, is that a failure? No, it's not a failure. Right? It was an unreasonable goal. Like I didn't know how to make it happen, but I thought that would be amazing to do. And then I just got out and I started to focus on my process and who I get to become. This is huge. When I'm working with like a lot of athletes and coaches now, I have to tell them what would excite you, but let's come back to the table and let's change the way you see them. Because if you set a really big goal and it's only success failure, that creates some anxiety. But if you set a really big goal you're excited about, and then you go, man, I'm going to grow like crazy going after this thing, that's the winning spot. So I just tell people life's too short to be reasonable based on society's standards. Like get out and choose what like speaks to your soul, that gets your heart excited, and just go for it and just see who you become in the process. That to me is what's the most important thing, is who you become while you're doing it.
Yeah, I always like that, and I think the quote in the book is that goal should not be reasonable by ordinary standards or something like that, or
Hmm.
ordinary expectations.
Yeah.
And I think it sets us up for failure, if you want to put quotation marks around that. I do a little air quotes, even though this is an audio
Yeah.
interview. But
I hear you.
you know, I, I I think it's important that we sometimes fall a little bit short, but if you fall short of an very extensive goal, you've still grown immensely. And
Yeah.
it's what's the quote? If you fall forward, at least you're moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, and you when you set them high and your mind is good, like you look at it as an opportunity and you focus on growing, you're going to fall way forward, right? You're not going to
Yeah,
fall like a little forward. You're going to fall forward further than you ever thought you could go before. So my thing is like, as long as your mind's right, set it really high. And I'm very fortunate. I work with a coach named John Cerritos at Cal Poly. Just an amazing guy. And John, his program is on the verge of something really special. But I think back a few years ago, and we had this conversation about like really, really, because he said, Coyte, like, what about being reasonable? And I had to just like challenge, like say, John, like, we don't need reasonable. Like, what would excite you? And it's so cool because like he took this and he grew and he implemented his culture. And now I not only see these unreasonable goals coming to fruition, I see a guy that like now has the ability to take and like even inspire his athletes to do that. And it's so cool to see when people do that, because it's like 3 to 5 years ago, we didn't see any of that. It was this really tough slog, but like he just had this vision and he kept believing and believing. And now you see it. I mean, he's a guy who's coming in. They're a top 15 program, and it's pretty neat. And I'm very fortunate, and because I think back about these experiences where I would work with people in courses, and all I really did was just give them guidance. Like they did all the work. I didn't. But you have these people that are like that write you that will be like, man, thank you so much. And now to have this college job where this was like a dream 5 years ago. Like I couldn't imagined it. And it's like, my goodness, like you provide this environment for people to be inspired, and they start doing this, writing it down, this unreasonable goal that would light them up. And then 3 to 5 years later, you go, holy moly, like there they are doing it. Like, and so it's so neat to see that. I've had so many examples of that where people have really pointed their brain to that, written it down on a consistent basis, took steps, and now here they are, like living their dream. It's a really neat
yeah,
thing to see.
cool. So what do you do to age well? This is kind of
Yeah,
the topic of this podcast is aging well.
yeah,
And it's one thing I want to ask all my guests is what do you do to age well? Now you're
yeah.
still a young, I mean, to me, you're a kid, but you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
know,
Yeah. No, I hit 40, and the one thing I think we'll just follow that unreasonable trend. Like I'm maybe unreasonable. Like I try to look at things and I try to not accept the norm. So I've had a lot of people who said, "Hey, you wrestled all the way through college. When you hit 40, I'm sorry, but like you're gonna hurt, right? Your joints are gonna be shot. You're probably gonna need surgeries." When I was in my 30s, I started to really study mindset and getting your mind right and your beliefs. And I started to realize that if I was going to age well and I was going to feel good, I had to change my mindset. And what I started to do is I would start to look around at people that were really living their best lives, like just crushing it. And I would look at those examples and I would see it and I'd go, my goodness, like, look at that. There's a person who, I think it's Hilda Crooks, I believe is what it is. I hope I don't get that name right, but there's an older woman who had been like in her 70s and 80s who had climbed Mount Whitney an absurd amount of times, the tallest in the lower 48, and she's just crushing it. My grandma in her 70s climbed one of the tallest mountains in Utah, the steepest kind of in grades in her 70s. And so I looked at those people and instead of going, I can't do this, I'm going to go, you know what? Look at those people. There's example of people that are out living all out vibrantly. Those are my models, not the other way. And I don't allow people to tell me like what's going to happen with my body. Like I refuse that. And so what I looked at it is instead started setting a different standard. I said, what if when I got to 40, I felt better than I've ever felt? That was my starting point. Is that possible? And I thought that has to be possible. I know other people don't think it is, but I think I can get to the point where I feel better than I've ever felt. And I started with that mindset shift. And then I followed it up, and there's a lot of things that I do. I'm very disciplined about drinking 75 ounces of water every single day. We get up in the morning and we have this power smoothie with maca powder and chia seeds and carrots and almond and just not in walnuts. Sorry, all these amazing things. Like, we really take care of ourselves. We're working hard now to swap more meat out of our diet to make sure that we're causing less inflammation. Like, we really work at it. We exercise on a consistent basis, and so we do a lot of the things that you hear. But I think the most important thing that I've done to age well is I've worked on my mind. And I tell people, when it comes to aging, inflammation is really an important factor. That if you're doing things to cause inflammation, at some point your body's going to wear down and it's not going to deal with that inflammation and you're going to have problems. And so to me, I think that the thing that maybe causes people more stress and more inflammation in their bodies than anything is what's going on in their minds. If we fill our minds with what's going on in the news and we're fearful all the time, that's inflammation. And that not only causes that initial level of stress and anxiety, which bogs our body down, that tends to make us make bad decisions because we're stressed. And so, man, I work really hard every morning for, like I said, I failed at these habits first, but now I'm thousands of days in. I focus on gratitude, why I'm grateful to be living the life that I'm living, why I'm grateful to have the family that I do, the coaching that I do, the vitality that I do. I really emphasize these things. And because of that, I think that causes me to be in a grateful, happy state. That leads me into my day right. I focus on my goals. I do my journaling. And I think what's happened is I've gotten my mind in a really good spot. And because I grow all the time, I'll mention one more thing that's been super important for me. I've learned to identify my triggers. Okay. I've learned to identify when I respond in ways that aren't productive. Where if I get rejection, I have this strong kind of response. That came from my UNC situation. And I start to learn those triggers that are causing me to respond in ways that aren't me, that cause stress, that cause anxiety. And I've done the work to also go back and make sure that I'm digging up my past pains and healing those things. And the result has been, man, I'm calm, I'm at peace. I feel very little anxiety, very little pressure. I get up every day, I'm grateful. I feel stillness, like I love my life. And I think I'm aging. I'd like to believe I'm aging well because, man, I've created a life that I love to be getting up living. And my goal is to get to 50 and be leaner and better shape than I ever have been. Well, at some point, will I lose that battle? Probably so. But I have to believe there's still things that I can do to get younger and to feel younger. But I'll say one last thing. I do a lot of hiking with my family. My son loves climbing mountains. And the coolest thing to me is when you go up and you climb these mountains and you see people in their 70s, you see people in their 80s, and you go, yes, like, man, these people are crushing it. We did one recently where we went up, I think it was Sabino Canyon here in Tucson. And we're walking on this road and there's just these people that we're talking to, and they thought it was so cool because we had these like 8 and 10-year-olds going on these like 16-mile hikes. But these people would stop and they would ask us questions. And this one guy was like, yep, like I did the Grand Canyon last year, all the way down, all the way back up. He's 78. Like he's 78. And I'm like, yes. And then on the way down, we see this guy in his 80s just really walking and moving. And I just watch that stuff and I admire it. Like I admire that. And I look and I think, that's who I want to be. And so in a way, I'm looking goal wise, and my wife and I are like, we want to be in our 70s and 80s and still hiking with our son and doing that with our grandkids. And so, man, I think between not only habits right, but getting your mind excited about a place that you can go to age well. We only get to live once as far as we know. Why not go out and try to live and age as well as we can? So I probably gave you more than you wanted there, but I am
No,
passionate about this
absolutely not.
topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're targeting 50. I'm 58 going on 59. And I'm looking, I'm thinking, okay, we were just talking about, not reasonable goals. It's like, come on, dude, go beyond the 50. I'm looking at like 80, 90,
Yeah.
I want to be 100. And,
Yeah.
my goal is, I was never a great athlete. I mean, I was a decent athlete. I wrestled in high school, three
Yeah.
varsity letters, played football, did a little bit of track.
Hmm.
I'm probably in some of the better shape that I've been in my life now at 58. But it's like, I want to become an elite athlete in my hundreds because but at
Yeah.
that point, everybody else has kind of given up on it. They've declined,
Yeah.
their performance is low. And if I just maintain where I'm at now, I'll be phenomenal. And it's just a matter of keeping
Yeah.
that effort up, and um, I think you're doing all the right stuff, and I think it helps kind of having kids that are active to kind of
Yeah.
keep pushing you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, so you're
Yeah. And
you're
there,
doing great things to age.
yeah. And that's my main, to me, like goal wise, that's what drives me. It's not necessarily now like this personal only for me. It's that I want to be, yeah, I want to be 80 and 90 or more and be hiking with my son and my grandkids. Like, and when I say hiking, I'm talking Mount Rainier. I'm talking Mount Kilimanjaro. Like that's what I want to be able to do, is to be able to do that and hold that pace. And my kid right now is a fast hiker. So I've got some work to do in terms of that. One thing I would
Yeah,
say, the probably the most important thing though that I've done to age and keep my mind really in a good place is I meditate every single day. I've meditated every single day for probably 3 years now, and I do 20 minutes every single day. And what I'm able to do with that is to quiet my mind, clear my mind, give my mind some space to recover, give my mind some space to be calm and quiet. I think we wear ourselves out. In fact, I think there's so much coming at us that our brains are moving, 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 projecting, projecting, projecting. And I've learned through that process to quiet my mind, to not respond to negative, to not have to project negative. I've learned that I can quiet my mind and focus on gratitude, focus on goals. And that has been one of the most powerful things that I've done to age. And it's not rocket, it's out there. I mean, people know, but it's the practicing and doing it every day. I think between that and things like gratitude, that helps you age really well.
yeah. I had a friend on for a conversation that we recorded last week, and he talked quite a bit about his meditative practices because that's one of the things he really attributed to turning his health around. In
Yeah.
that 20-minute mark he mentioned, it's like there's
Yeah.
something about 20 minutes. You got to hit that 20 minutes
Yeah.
because somewhere about 17, 18 minutes is where you kind of really relax your mind and you
Hmm.
get into that mode and you get all the benefits of the meditation. And I got to
Yeah.
be honest, I need to meditate a little bit better and more. Um, Trying to fit that in. I do journal every day, continuing many of the practices that I had journaled before doing your fundamentals of high performance. I believe is what your workshop was called at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I just kind of refined it a bit from that, adding things like a daily, going over my daily mission statement, my
Sure. Yeah.
values, setting goals, both spiritually, physically, intellectually, emotionally, and socially, and then just kind of writing out thoughts for the
Yeah.
day. And that's somewhat meditative for me, but it's not probably enough. I need to
Yeah.
spend a little bit more of just that quality time. I
Mhm.
should try and use my commute to work a little bit more effectively with that. But really one of the things I am trying to focus on. But you kept mentioning gratitude, and I've changed my spelling of the word gratitude. I now only write
Mhm.
it with two T's, actually three
Nice.
T's, but two together, where it's kind of combining that attitude
Mhm.
and gratitude. And so it's an attitude of gratitude that we really need to work on.
Yeah.
'Cause it's easy to be thankful for things because we're usually thankful for the good things. But I think a
Yeah.
mindset of gratitude is every circumstance, every opportunity, every failure, every success is something to be grateful for. And I think what that can go a long way in really helping us to age well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, I tell people one of the most powerful gratitude exercises that I work every day is it's not the three things I'm grateful for. Those are super important. The one that's literally changed my life is taking my biggest challenge every single day and asking myself what I could be grateful for. And what I shortcut to it is what's the gift? I take a big challenge, and I learned that from losing my job at UNC. I was struggling when I lost my job at UNC and I was frustrated. And I read the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And
Great book.
gosh, oh man, and I sat down and I read that thing, and I don't want to spoil it for people who might want to read it, but here's a guy facing so much adversity in concentration camps, and all but one of his, I believe one or two of his family members brutally murdered in these camps. And he saw things that we'll never see in our lifetime. And I thought to myself, like, gosh, like if I was in a situation, I would have been so angry. Like I would have wanted to get revenge. And or if I wasn't that, I would have felt overwhelmed. Like losing my wife and my kids, I can't even imagine. And yet he might have felt those things, but he didn't act on them. Instead, he set up suicide watch camps. He wanted to give people hope because he believed you could get out and you could control your response. And he got out of it and he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Last I saw, it was like 60 million people it's impacted. And his core belief is that basically, the greatest freedom that you have is the ability to choose your response to any situation in life. And when I read that, I'm sitting there going,
Yeah.
my goodness, like here I am feeling sorry for myself, but I thought, wow, like I have it really good. Like I may have lost my job here, but man, I've got this incredible wife who loves me regardless. And I've got these amazing kids and I've got this vitality and I've got these skill sets. I can do something with this. And so that was the starting point for it. It was from Viktor Frankl. And so I started every day, started to say, okay, you've lost your job. What could be good? Like, what's the gift here? And at first, my brain's like, nothing, dummy. Like, you got fired from your job. Like, this is ridiculous. Why would there be anything that's good? But I'm stubborn. I knew there was something special here. So I kept asking. And eventually I started to go, maybe this is your opportunity to go out and to do something that you've always wanted to do. Like you've wanted to be an entrepreneur. You've wanted to go out and coach. Maybe this is that spot. And at first my brain's like, no, that's not it. But I kept asking. And then eventually my brain started going, I think that is it. And then I started to pursue it. And then I started to do it. And I started to realize like, what, this is awesome. And that was the moment where I realized, like, you could literally train your brain to, in your hardest things, look for its good. It's the Viktor Frankl effect. Like, if you look for it, there's always something amazing in the middle of it. And somebody might say, Coyte, you might have been able to change that, but how do you know it works in real time? I worked that for hundreds and hundreds of days. I'd ask myself my greatest challenge. And then COVID came and my job was to be a speaker. And so I was traveling and making a very good living as a speaker. COVID came. I lost $35,000 in business in 2 weeks. I mean, my business shut down. There was nothing there. And people said, did you freak out? Were you mad? Were you angry? And I said, if it was only for a moment. And immediately my brain started going, what's the gift? What could be good here? And it was so quick that it did it because I trained my mind. And all of a sudden I started to go, well, this is my chance to build out these coaching programs, to build out these courses, to do these things I've wanted to do that will make my business stronger when I come back, even with speaking. And so now, like, I'm working with these teams and I love it. Like, I love it. It's one of the coolest things I've ever been able to do is working on that. But it only came because I trained my brain in my biggest challenges to find something to be grateful for. It's a hard skill set, but once you master it, it's one of the master skill sets, and it will absolutely help you age well. Because when challenges come, you'll go, "Oh, bring it on! Let's find something good here. Something awesome is going to come out of this." And it's really cool when you develop that skill set.
That's awesome. And that's a great segue to my next question is which I'd like you to tell me about your current road trip.
Oh yeah, yeah. We've made a pretty big decision, and this also came from COVID. This is another one of those beautiful gifts that came out of it because, like, all of a sudden, my business is turned upside down. And so and then our kids are not in school, and the school that they're going back to is really sort of messy. And my wife came to me one day and she said, Coyte, like, what if we just sold everything and bought a trailer and traveled? And I know I'm the risk guy, but I was like, wait, no, that doesn't sound like a good. That I don't know about that. Like that sounds crazy. Like why would I do that? But because I have this morning ritual that I work every single day and I meditate and I have this space to reflect, I started to go like, what if we did do this? One of our values as a family is adventure. Like we love getting out and showing our kids the world. Like, what if this was an opportunity to do that? And then I started to think how much I had spent on rent in the last 3 years in Anacortes. And when I ran that number, I was like, I am not doing that anymore. I'm not paying that amount of rent. And so I went to my wife and I said, let's do it. And we literally went out. We sold, um, donated, gave away about everything we own. And it was like it was a mountain of stuff. Like we don't even realize how much stuff we have until we go to get rid of it. I mean, we had garages full because we'd moved several times across the country. We had a garage full of stuff and boxes. We literally didn't even know it was in the boxes. Our house, our toy area was like, looked like a bomb had gone off. We had just piles of toys from our kids that they had gathered. So we just went through this process. We said, we're going to do this. And really, over like a month's time, we just got rid of everything. We literally just have some boxes at my mom, just a couple. We bought the trailer about a little over a year ago. We just took off. We decided we were going to travel across the United States. And so we took our kids, we started at Bend, Oregon. We went down through California. We went to Arizona. We went all the way over through Texas, through Florida, um, North Carolina, South Carolina, the opposite order, obviously, up into the Midwest to the Dakotas. We did a whole lap in our first year, and now we were on our second year. And we just love it. I tell people our kids have seen more in a year that I saw in my whole life growing up. And it's just it's been this epic adventure. I've seen so many things. It's just amazing. And the lifestyle's just been awesome. You know, as things are a little bit wild across the country, we're living the best we've ever lived. And I think that's that take your challenge, turn it into something special. My wife and I's relationship has gotten closer because we live in a 450 foot trailer with our two kids. We're very close. And so you're going to go further apart or you're going to get closer. We've gotten closer and it's been awesome, man. Just to see this country. Like I tell people, we think we know it, but like most of the time we're just scratching the surface. When you actually can go and spend weeks and even months in places, man, you can just see so much. And so it's just been amazing. Like I think we could do this for the rest of our lives and not see everything in our own country. So it's pretty amazing.
That is cool. That's probably something I have to wait until retirement to do, but I want to do it someday.
Yeah. That's a lot of times what people what their plan is. And the one thing too is if anybody ever gets passionate enough, it's surprising that we can actually do it sooner than we think. But there have to be some shifts if you're going to do that. But yeah, it's a cool lifestyle. I've met people here who are retired that have been doing it for 35 years and they love it.
Yeah.
Now I know there's people that do it and then they're like, nope, can't live in a house with my family like that. I'm going back to a big house. Um, but it's so cool. And the one nice thing is like in a world where there's been a lot of stress in these parks, like people happy here.
Yeah.
Young people, old people, like people are happy, people are friendly. And it's really nice like to have that type of experience and getting to just live and connect with people in a time where we're not connected. That also helps you age well, because I think one of the things the Dalai Lama talks about is like, if you want to have happiness to me is what it takes to age well, to be happy, to be fulfilled. And a lot of what that comes down to is being able to stay connected with people. We are wired as a species to be around each other, at least in pockets. And we've done that over the last year. I've met more people. We've met more good friends than we did when we lived in normal house, normal community. We found some people with similar values who like to hike, like to do their thing. In fact, we're now in Tucson with the family we met last year in Sedona, and we're spending a month here. When we get done here, we'll go to Sedona, where we're going to have a couple that we met. We're going to travel with for some months. And so it's been pretty cool.
That is cool. And Maya and Carter are being shaped from this for who knows what purposes. I don't think you'll
Yeah.
know until
Yeah.
20, 30, even 40 years from now how this has impacted not only their lives, but I think the lives of everybody they're going to touch going
Yeah.
forward. So it's going to be really exciting to kind of see where this leads the Cooper family over the next decades.
Yeah, we've thought it's a blessing. We've also thought as parents we may have to chase them around when they get older because their norm is like exploring. Like they love exploring now, and so as a parent, I think we might be creating little bit of monsters too because they may love traveling so much that we may have to go to Europe to find them. Like my son's talked about, he wants to go. He wants to go to the Alps. He wants to go to the Andes. Like, and so we've got our work cut out too. We're gonna have to become world travelers because their norm is travel, and so they want to see the world. So we're going to end up having to, with our grandkids, chasing them down a little bit.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
Um, so my next question, and I actually was going to ask this earlier, and I skipped over it, but in the fundamentals of high performance workshop that you did, we talked a lot about being growth oriented, and we've talked a little bit about growth orientation and
Yeah.
growth throughout this conversation today. But what does this mean, and at what age should one start focusing on being growth oriented?
To me, it's kind of everything. If you can develop a growth orientation where you look your lens to see the world is just the opportunity to grow, it changes everything. In fact, when I'm working with athletes right now, if you can get them to love growth, fear can disappear. It's one of those things like your fear, your anxiety can go away because if you look at everything as an opportunity to get better, that's opportunity to your brain. Your brain's excited about that. Like you can pursue a goal with a growth orientation and it's exciting. You can bounce back from failure quicker because why? Well, I love growth. I want to get better. And so for me, it's just this thing that really opens up the world to be explored, for your goals to be pursued with like excitement and passion. In our world, we're so wired like this success failure. Like even from a young age, we're taught you're either the best or you're not. And if you're not, like gosh, that sucks for you. And I felt that. Like I went through that process. And it eventually I got to college and that was very much the focus. And it was a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. I didn't enjoy it. And then I got done and I started to read. And when you read a lot, you stumble a lot upon, I mean, first off, when you're reading, that's growth. And I started this morning ritual and it became my growth ritual. And I started to love growth. I'm like, gosh, like it changed my mind. It changed everything. And then with that in place, you read books like Carol Dweck's about growth mindset. And you start to realize like, wow, like if I can just, instead of seeing it as success failure, instead of needing to be perfect, I can just go out and grow. And if I grow, gosh, like I'm going to get really good at this thing. And so it's this amazing, we could talk about it for probably 2, 3, 4 episodes, but it's this opportunity to approach the world entirely differently. When can you start? As early as possible. I am working really hard, and it is not easy with younger kids to teach them this because even at a young age, you want to cling to being right. You want to cling to being just getting things just right because we get praise for that. And what we try to do is just praise effort, praise the process. Last year, I'll give you an example of this, and it turned out really amazingly. My son and my wife and I went up and tried to climb Mount Adams. Mount Adams is 12,280 feet. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a legit big. It's second biggest in Washington behind Mount Rainier, which is a monster. And it was my kid's goal, and he wrote it down. He was excited about it. We went up. We didn't know enough about doing it. We didn't know that much about altitude. Like we went from Anacortes, which is 0, to Mount Adams. And so we went up and climbed it, and we got to about 9,500, 10,000 feet because we were going to do it in a day. We didn't break it into 2 days. And we got up there, and he got altitude sickness, right? And so I'm sitting here. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew he's like, oh, my belly feels funny. And I'm like, well, we need to feed you. We need to get you some food. You're probably not eating enough. And we need to get you some water. And he was going like, I'm not hungry. And I just hadn't read enough to know what was going on. And so I in my mind, I'm going, I need to push him because, man, if he doesn't hit this goal, I don't want him to be disappointed. Right. We had talked about growth mindset, and I was getting caught up in my old conditioning here, by the way. We finally went a little bit further, and he's like sat down, and at this point he started to get like shaky. So at this point, like he started to shiver. I'm like, okay, we need to go down. And he's like, I'm ready to be done. And so they have these glissading chutes. They're like these little, you can sled down on your butt down. And so we went down like 1,000 feet in minutes. And all of a sudden, boom, he just started to change. He was a different person. It was wild. You drop thousands of feet, and my little boy came back. And so we went down. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, gosh, I hope he's not disappointed by this, but I know that I have to set the tone the right way. And so we started to say, man, like, you did a really good job. We're proud of you. And you could just tell he was really proud of himself. And I thought, this is so cool. Like, and the reason why is he knew he gave his best effort. And as a parent, I don't think I've ever been more proud than like that, like realizing like he was learning growth mindset. Like, he did the best he could. We didn't know about elevation. But he was so proud that he worked really hard at it. And he just went back. He went to the pool. He was a kid. He was excited. But I realized then that it was good and we needed to keep working on it. We came back a year later. We learned from it. We camped up there at 9,500 feet and he climbed it. And it was this amazing experience. And I don't think we could have got there without a growth mindset, because what normally in society we would do is, oh, he didn't make it. Oh, I'm so sorry you didn't. Oh, that must have been disappointing. You must have been frustrated. Instead of stopping and going, man, we got better. And not only that, he was 10 years old and he made it to 10,000 feet on a mountain. That's amazing. And so we
Yeah.
also one of the things that I teach is like learning to praise your progress. Growth mindset, praise your progress. Like, when you are 10 years old and you go to 10,000 feet, even if you didn't make it to the top, that's amazing. And so we told him that. And then the next year, of course, we learned, we grew, we came back, we did it, and it was awesome. But it was the growth that was most important. And so what we want in our kids, we want our kids to grow up and realize, like, if you just have this growth mindset, gratitude, your life can be amazing. Now, there's some massive challenges. We are not there yet with our kids. Not even close. Because some people would say, I ran into your kids and they were complaining. Yes, they complain sometimes. We're working on that. But it's just so important to start as early as possible. The cool thing is, though, I've seen people change at all different ages this way too, where they've been conditioned to like be perfect and guarded. And then all of a sudden they start to do this morning growth ritual and they start to see their mind change. And then they start to learn to love growth. And then they start to move forward and they start to say, man, I just want to pursue this goal and just do the best that I can. I'm going to give it my best effort. I'm going to grow no matter what. And it's just amazing to see them free up. And so you can start when you're an infant if you have the right parents. You can do it middle age. You can do it when you're in 60, 70, 80, 90. You could implement a growth mindset at 100 and change you. The one thing that I know for sure is that when you have a growth mindset, it makes everything better in your life.
Absolutely. And this was kind of a loaded question because we're connected on social media and I get to track your family a little bit. And I got to tell you, I'm inspired by your kids. Both Maya and Carter both have a growth mindset. And yeah, okay, you could say they complain, but every kid complains
Yeah.
and every adult complains. And to watch, you know, especially Carter, I see him journaling and that kind of stuff. It's
Oh
just
yeah,
it's
yeah,
amazing at
yeah,
that age to have that kind of focus. And so keep it up. You're doing a great job as a parent,
yeah.
you and Brandy. So
Yeah, and I'll say
I
this.
really enjoyed that.
And I'll say this one thing about Carter. He's in both of them special kids, and I think we all, if you have kids, you have special kids. Like, they're all so different. Carter hit day 700 this morning in his journal, or yesterday. He forgot to tell me yesterday. He said that yeah, I hit 700 yesterday, and it's like, it's really cool, to see him writing down gratitude, writing down goals, pursuing goals. Is pretty neat. And so he's a special kid in that way, that he dials in. And Maya has a little bit of me in her. She's got a little bit of rebel in her. So she battles a little bit, but even her on the edge of the bed, she was reading her books this morning. She has her own journal that she writes in. And so yeah, there's just different ways you have to come about it. But I do know there are certain things that when you do them, you're going to be better in life. I don't worry so much about get so concerned about their high level math skills and stuff like that. I'm more concerned just like, do they know how to meditate? Do they know gratitude? Do they know how to pursue the things that they're really passionate about? Those are the things that we're concerned with as parents, is those pieces. And our kids are getting it like every night before they go to bed. If you don't do it, they want it. We put on a nice relaxing song and they meditate for about 3 minutes. And sometimes I wonder if they know what that means, but I do think they know. Like, we had a process where we taught that to them, and they do their breathing, and it's pretty cool. So to see kids that are doing that, it's neat.
That is cool. And I get to share one little life lesson that my 16-year-old, his experience recently.
Yeah.
I mean, he's wrestling now, and watching him over probably the 8+ years that he's been wrestling. I mean, there were times when I thought he would quit the sport.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to happen
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
him. And just probably about the end of eighth grade is when it really started to click for him. But the progress in these last few years has just been tremendous.
That's cool.
And he had a match early this season where, he went out and wrestled this kid. It was not a great wrestler. I think he was a freshman. Son's wrestling 220 now, which I wish they had that weight class when I wrestled. But
Yeah.
he and he's a little bit underweight, so he's always wrestling guys a little bit bigger than him. But he goes out and he threw a really crappy head and arm on the kid
No.
and pinned him. But he pinned him like in 33 seconds, I think it was. And his coach, he's got some really phenomenal coaches, but Coach Keeney pulls him aside afterwards and chews him out. And it's like, do you want to, is it more important for you to win this tournament today, or is it more important for you to be a better wrestler in February?
Yeah.
And the light bulb went off and he's like, I got to be a better wrestler in February.
Yeah.
So he's starting to focus on the thing. What do I need to do to get better? I don't care if I lose. This tournament's not important. How I place is not important. What I do in February is going to be most important. And I think that's like one of the
Yeah.
most important life lessons a kid can win or learn from a sport. And he's starting to learn it
Yeah.
early, which is really kind of cool.
That is cool. No, I like
We
that. I
should,
think that's awesome.
yeah. Um, So you've been very busy developing tools for people to elevate their purpose, their passion, and potential on a consistent daily basis.
Hmm.
Can you share with us kind of what products and services you have to offer?
Yeah. Like I said, I've already mentioned one of the things that I do pretty often is speaking, and that disappeared with COVID, but I'm doing more of that. On the side, I mean, and I'm going to doing more of these in the next years. A lot of times I'll offer webinars for people. If they just want to learn and they don't want any strings attached, I'm going to be doing more of those things. I have podcast episodes that people can listen to, but in terms of products, the things I'm most excited about is just some of the courses that I've created. I've created these courses where people can dive into them and learn a lot of the things I've talked about. It's not easy to establish habits on your own, but the reality is the right habits can literally transform your entire life. They can transform your mind. I think I'm a product of that. I think I've had a strong mindset throughout my life, but I didn't know what I know now. And the thing I've learned since UNC is that, man, if you put the right habits in place to get control of your mind, to be able to not only clear your mind, but to point it to the right things, your life can be really, really vibrant. And so I have courses that I offer that people can jump into, and they can do those courses to change their lives. And then I do coaching. That's one of my favorite things to do, is whether it's with a team or with individuals, is I do more private coaching where for people who want to dive in and learn these processes. For example, like when it comes to habits, you'll learn these in the courses, but habits are hard to establish. And one of the reasons why we don't have the right process when it comes to habits. And I'll give you one small example. Here's what happens very often with people in our society. They'll pick a habit like meditation. And first off the bat, I think our expectations aren't reasonable. The thing about meditation is it is hard. The thing about meditation is your mind is going to be busy. And so you have to change your expectations to the start. Yes, you want to have a clear mindset, but it's really about showing up and working your process and redirecting back to your breath. But here's the point I want to get to. People will sit down and they'll meditate for a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, and they'll show up and they'll work their process. Day 5 or day 6 comes and they fall short. They jump all over themselves. I always do this. I'm a disappointment. But they have this negative response and they don't realize they're literally training their brain to avoid the thing that they want to be doing. What do I teach people to do? I teach people on day 1, when you finish now, celebrate, clap, flex your muscles, jump up and down, play some music, be excited. You just took a step towards being better. Do on day 2, you do the same thing. Day 3, the same thing. Now, you won't do it forever, but you have to learn to celebrate and be excited because your brain responds to that. That's how you encode habits. On day 5, if you fall short, diminish your dwell time. Just get a curious mindset. Say, hey, what do I need to do differently to get back on track? And then when you get back on track the next day, what do? Celebrate. Be excited about your process. Train your brain to love your habits. I used to be a wrestler. Wrestlers are supposed to want to grind, right? I don't teach my guys now that I'm working with from these colleges. I don't need them to grind. I need them to love meditation. I need them to love gratitude. I want them to love it so much that it becomes their go-to. I think Cale Sanderson set the bar on some of this stuff in terms of like habits that are completely different. It's not about that. You'll work hard, but I want guys to love working hard. I want them to want to show up. And so you got to have the right process right. So what I get to do when I'm coaching not only individuals, but like these programs is teach them how to establish these habits right so they can love competition or they can love being a parent. Because that's what I figure is like, man, if you have this goal and you despise the process, what's the point? Like, to me, it's like if you want to have the goal's going to be awesome, but 99.99% of it is your journey. Get your journey right. Your life is really fulfilling. So the coaching, the courses, the coaching allow me to do that with people.
That's awesome. And of course, you got the books as well.
Oh yeah, the books.
Where can our
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where can our listeners find you?
Well, the nice thing about my name is I don't think there's another Coyte Cooper on the planet, at least as far as now. And so if the Coyte, if you eliminate the second O in Coyote, that's, you pretty much got it. Coyte Cooper. You can find my information on there. You can find information on my books, the podcast episodes I've had in the past. You can find email if you want to reach out to ask me about coaching or courses or anything like that.
That's awesome. Any last words in closing?
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is, man, the one thing that my coach taught me is that back in high school, Ron, was that we're capable of really amazing things. And when it comes to aging, you can have a life that's vibrant. You can have a life that you love. But you got to show up and you got to pursue that. And you got to be willing to get outside the mold. Like, you can't go along with society and eat fast food all the time. Not going to work. You have to be willing to kind of create your own path. And that can be challenging, but if you look at it the right way and take pride in being unique and going out and pursuing your highest potential, it can be something that's really, really rewarding. So I would say it's worth it. I love getting up every day and knowing that I'm living a life that I absolutely unequivocally would not regret if it ended tomorrow. I'm living the best that I can. And so it's worth doing that. Life's short. Go and get after it.
Well, thank you, Coyte. I really appreciate the time today. This was awesome. Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well. If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers.